Hey guys, Al here with Vitalize Seed. Brian wanted me to put together a list of 5 bullet points, and I'm going to try to keep it brief, 5 minutes or less, as to what we can do to improve soil health. Number 1 on that list is going to be a soil test. On the soil test, I'd like to recommend getting your pH, your base saturations, organic matter, CEC readings, as well as your macros and micros. By having this information, we can decide what types of lime we should be using, if we need gypsum, do we need to foliar feed the plants in the beginning of a process or in a program in order to generate the healthiest plants and also the healthiest soil structure over a given period of time. Obviously working towards using the soil to be the main source for feeding those plants. So number 1 is always a soil test, in my opinion. Number 2 is following the 6 soil health principles. You can look that up. My favorite to talk about is number 1, contact. So that kind of goes into your soil test. Number 2 is the diversity of planting and keeping a constant root growing. Here at Vitalize Seed, we have a spring mix and a fall mix. Super diverse, like 13, 14 species in one and 16 species in the next, that both feed off of each other and keep a constant root growing 365 days a year, depending on snowfall and things of that nature, but really working towards trying to constantly be feeding that the microbes, as well as lending our systems towards a more fungal dominated system through various root exudation of various crops that work synergistically together. So follow 6 soil health principles. I like to talk about the diversity and keeping that constant root growing, at least for this short video. The other area I'd like to talk about, especially for deer food plots, this doesn't pertain to those who might be interested in gardening necessarily, but for deer food plots, if we have a focus on soil health, we want to focus on browse pressure. So there's a lot of research you can look up about paddocks grazing or rotational grazing or mob grazing, which is heavily used in the cattle industry. When it comes to deer, we want to make sure that we're leaving enough above ground biomass in order to, not only because above ground biomass is good from an organic matter perspective, going back into the soil once that crop is terminated or dies naturally, but also from a continuous photosynthetic energy capture. So as a plant is overbrowsed, it's not able to continue to photosynthesize, which means its root exudation is not going to be substantial. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that you're not going to continue to feed your below ground microbes, and below ground microbes help us to create better soil structure from a biological standpoint. So soil aggregation is often something that's mentioned. And that's all driven by the microbial system through root exudation. So the sun kind of starts it all, and you need those plants to be healthy. So if we're having all of our tonnage removed, that's one major issue. The other major issue is the stopping of photosynthetic energy capture. So by having that monitored, we can either plant more food, manage our does by shooting more does, or sometimes we have to do both. So that's something that's important if you're interested in soil health. And then lastly, reduce disturbance. So chemical or physical disturbance. It's always our goal to have less inputs, less disturbance on those soils, and only use what we have to. So that's something I'd like to bring up and as well. And when you do that, you can help to further drive home nutrient cycling, which allows us to reduce our input costs by having one plant species or group of plants, like we do at Vitalize Seed, feeding the next group of plants. That's what we try to do with our nitro boost to carbon load, and you're cycling those through understanding carbon to nitrogen ratios and how that all works, which is going to be another discussion for another day. So hopefully you guys found this useful in your top 5 or 6 ways that we can work on helping to promote soil health or good soil health practices. Thanks so much, guys. If you are interested in Vitalize Seed, check us out, vitalizeseed.com.